them out of hand without even looking at my proofs. But I will show you two recent inventions, the Rochester Cloak and the so-called Lenticular Curtain, that are very similar to my own ideas of my light interface and the Lenticular Box that I have had for 24 years now. You can look for these things for yourself online. I hope you will bear with me and try to understand my proofs of my work and my comparison of my work with the works of others.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
And the Lenticular Curtain.
This is a continuation of the beginning of my video that died on me.
How I came up with my ideas.
I'm over at a friend's house.
Boards were my displays in an art presentation back in 1998. There was the first poster board, but it was too damaged to be of any use in this presentation. But it was a diagram of a person with a TV in front of him or her and a camera behind to project the background in front of the person to create a very simple state of invisibility.
I'm videotaping myself, watching the videotape that I filmed. Sort of weird, I don't know.
This is the second board. The second board shows a two-sided monocular. That was this. It shows a two-sided monocular 2D view having two camera units, TV camera units displaying the background back and front of the environment around the person. Those are two small TV camera units in front and behind the person. This third board shows TV camera units surrounding the individual, this time seen from above, in a faceted, multi-view TV camera display, which was a critical vision of making something invisible from all angles. The next display board illustrates the same TV camera units but without the person inside, and showing the web of wiring to each TV camera unit instead. This shows a house and a tree and a fence in the background being brought through at different angles of this contraption, this device or whatever. The light interface is simply the The last board shows my first concept of a light interface, transmitting images from the outer 3D camera units to the inner units and back out of the opposing TV camera units on the opposite sides. That's a light interface, and if you can see the wiring, that's how they transmit. The light interface
Your phone's ringing.
Concentrated shape volume of the space that a solid geometric object is resting in connected to the outside surface of the invisible object to conceal a person or object in between the interior light interface and the outside 3D pixel surface. Some time ago, someone sent me a diagram of what it would take to make an object invisible. This is depicted in the top portion of this diagram. They instinctively knew that an invisible object would require some sort of 3D pixels, and that light coming in at an angle from one side of the object must come out at the other side at the same angle, but didn't know how to achieve this. I sent them the diagram pictured below of my light interface concept. In this depiction, the multifaceted TV camera units of the previous display has now been refined down to the sending, receiving 3D pixels on the outer surface of the invisible object. In this case, an aircraft, through the light interface within and back out of the 3D pixels on the opposite side of the craft. The light interface is simply a concentration of the space that the object is resting in. This next diagram shows the three-dimensional perspective of the light interface inside a craft, connected to the outer surface 3D pixels with fiber optic bundles in my concept of a 3D pixel unit. Again, the light interface takes the same shape as the object being made invisible. The next diagram is an object with moving parts, such as the appendages of this hypothetical invisible battlesuit. My light interface would be required to send light through an object with moving parts, because if the fiber optics wires were hardwired, you'd have to alter each connection even if the appendages moved by a small amount. With the puppet interface inside the suit moving in step, light intersects within the interface in a free-floating web of light as the suit moves, allowing for changes to the paths of light through the suit. A real invisible cloak would be rigid like a suit of armor, not a Harry Potter flimsy fabric cloak, in order to maintain the paths of light in and out of the invisible battlesuit. The next two diagrams show how to send light through an object both with and without my concept of the light interface. The first diagram shows a hard wiring of fiber optic wire from one 3D pixel to all the rest, and what I call one-to-many correspondence of inner and outer 3D pixels without my light interface concept. This diagram only shows one node of connection. The next diagram shows what I call one-to-one correspondence with a fiber optic bundle instead of single wires connecting the outer 3D pixels to their counterpart 3D pixels on the surface of the light interface within. This too only shows one node of connection. The inner square is the light interface, again taking the same shape as the object being made invisible. This diagram is a cross-section of a three-dimensional pixelated sphere, which is the highest form of 3D invisible holodeck resolution of a solid geometric object, because light travels through it at regular intervals. Any other shape would have less fully wraparound or interior 3D resolution, but which could be increased by adding more to the fiber optic bundles in between the inner and outer 3D pixels. Also, this diagram shows a person existing in a sort of holodeck inside the interface of the outside environment, painted all along the interior walls of the interface as light is being sent through the object to make it invisible. The holodeck converted light interface is the byproduct that I discovered of sending light through an object to make it invisible. This is my great discovery. Invisibility, adaptive camouflage, and holodeck virtual immersion technologies are exact geometric inverse forms of each other. Invisibility, holodeck, and holodeck technologies, their visual aspects are inversely related to each other. If you turn an invisible object outside in, you'd have a holodeck. If you turned a holodeck inside out, you'd have an invisible object. The last diagram showed a person inside the light interface seeing a holodeck scenery of the outside environment as the light was being sent through to make the object invisible. But also in the same token, the same person would be magnified to the outside world on the three-dimensional pixelated surface of a hypothetical invisible sphere, or any shape for that matter, illuminated from the light outside. A good way to combine both invisibility and holodeck technologies would be to have two light interfaces. One to send light through the outer surface of the object to make you invisible inside, while another interface is connected to a pre-recording of a random outside environment or a computer-programmed holodeck scenery. I call my idea an APRO, or an artificial parallel reality orb. It's so simple I don't know why the Star Trek writers never thought of this device using the Star Trek universe's already existing Klingon cloaking device wrapped around a Star Trek The Next Generation holodeck. Again, invisibility and holodeck technologies share an interesting inverse relationship to each other to create this device. My next diagram is an illustration of a paradox of more than one APROs existing in this reality. I call it the paradox of ghost interfacing. The philosophy behind an ideal perfect APRO, invisible to both light and matter in this world, is that it must be completely invisible to the outside world while being able to detect and manipulate the matter and energy of the world beyond itself. Now, if two perfect ideal APROs existed, how would they interact? If they can detect each other, they are breaking rule 1. They must be completely invisible to anything beyond itself in the outside world. If they can't detect each other, they are breaking rule 2. They must be able to detect and manipulate everything in the outside world. This is the paradox of ghost interfacing that extends into the virtual environments of the holodeck converted light interfaces as well, but I'll end this topic here. The next diagram I don't really discuss very much because I'm not quite sure of its actual operation. But I believe that you can create a solid hologram of someone or something existing within the light interface, and not just a three-dimensional depiction of the outside environment along the interior walls. It also introduces the concept of telepresence in between different holodecks, another idea that the Star Trek writers never picked up on. The next diagram is just one of my many investigations into the 3D pixelization of solid geometric shapes, in this case a simple sphere packing of basic spheres around a central point. This last diagram shows my idea for a 3D pixel unit that works in conjunction with the light interface to make invisibility and holodeck technologies possible. This 3D pixel is capable of taking light in at one angle and sending it through its counterpart smaller 3D pixel on the surface of the light interface and coming back out at the same angle that it went in at. This is crucial for sending light through an object to make it invisible. The Rochester Cloak. The Rochester Cloak, the most recent innovation in invisibility in the vein of research that I'm putting my money on.